Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Powerful Women Rising podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Snow. Have we met before? Do I know you? Have you listened to this podcast before? If I don't know you, I would love to connect with you. Are you following me on Instagram? Because that's where I like to chat with people, especially about the topics that we talk about on this podcast. I have different guests on all the time talking about different things. I do solo episodes where I love to talk about all aspects of business relationships, especially networking like a human and not like a salesy weirdo. And the conversation continues over on Instagram. So if you're not following me, I would love to connect with you over there on Instagram. Of course, I will follow you back. Of course. That's like business relationships 101, people. So speaking of Instagram, do you consider Instagram a community? What about Facebook? Are you in Facebook groups? Do you love Facebook groups? Do you love the @everyone tag? Today, we are talking about how to grow a business using a community, particularly an online community. I'm interviewing Deb Schell, and she is a community strategist. She helps business owners grow their business by establishing, launching, and nurturing their online communities, memberships, and associations. She's been doing this work since 2020, and she's helped over 70 business owners to do just that. So this is a very interesting conversation. Now, if you've never thought about having an online community, this is a great conversation for you and a great place for you to just kind of start thinking about if you were going to do this, what would you do? It's also a great place for you to start thinking like, should I even launch an online community, right? One of the things we talk about on this podcast all the time is how many messages there are out there saying, you should do this, you should do this. If you want to get more business, you should do this. If you want to have more sales, you should do this. An online community is often another one of those things, right? It's on our list of 5,000 things that we need to do in order to be successful in business. Have an online community. That's not necessarily true for everyone. So this is a good listen for you, whether you have considered starting an online community, you have an online community and you want to figure out why it's not working or how to make it grow or be more engaged. Or maybe you've never even thought about it, but you want to be open to the idea and think about whether it might be a good fit for you. So listen to this interview. Go join me on Instagram. We're going to be talking about it all week, and I would love to continue the conversation with you over there. All right, people, here is my interview with Deb Schell. Hello, Deb. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me today, Melissa.
Yes, I'm super excited to talk to you about online communities. I'm going to try not to just use this interview for my own personal gain. I'm like, and also hypothetically.
Well, that happens all the time, so no worries.
I'm sure it does.
I'm happy to talk about your community strategy.
But no, this is a great topic because I think online communities are one of those things. There's so many things out there that are like, you need all these things, right? Like if you're going to grow a business, you need to be on TikTok and you need to be speaking and you need a blog and you need a podcast and you need an online community. And so I'm excited to talk to you about like, is that really something that everybody needs? How do we know if we need it? Is it a good idea? I have my own thoughts, but we'll see how this goes. So before we dive in, tell everybody a little bit about you and about what you do.
So I am a community strategist. I've helped over 70 entrepreneurs build an online community or help them with their community strategy since 2020. I launched and failed in 2020. I learned a lot in the process, and now I help others who are trying to craft community with belonging and thinking about how we can authentically and intentionally connect inside an online community. And then I also have a podcast called the Community Strategy Podcast. And then as well, I just wrote a book. It's called Creator to Community Builder. So those are some resources that are things that just happened is the book. That's the newest thing.
That's awesome. That's so exciting. Congratulations. Writing a book is not an easy feat.
It's a project.
Yeah, that's amazing. So when we're talking about communities, are we talking about like a free Facebook group? Are we talking about like a paid membership? What are we talking about here?
Well, when we say the word community, maybe people think about different things. So, just to clarify, what I define community as is when you are able to bring people together so that they can talk to each other, that kind of differentiate from building an audience. Whereas online, you're putting a podcast together or you're putting something on social media, you're kind of blasting it to the universe kind of thing. Um, and your audience members may or may not connect with each other, but we're talking about an intentional community where the goal is for them to connect and offer up shared wisdom in an online space.
Love it. So it could be free, it could be paid.
It could be a lot of things. The platform doesn't matter. The people are what's important because that's who the community is. So
Yeah.
you could have a community being an email list. You could have a community, not an email list, but an email conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Have an email, or you could have a community be a Facebook group or a Mighty network or a circle community. There's lots of places, and deciding what is the right strategy for you depends on where you're at and what your needs are. So,
Yeah. So what are some of the main ways that you see communities being used to build businesses?
so community-led communities are really focused on support. So there's one that would be a support kind of community, which is, you and I are going to connect so we can encourage each other to do something amazing that we can't do on our own. Or there is a customer community. So if you wanted to provide customer support to your audience, let's say you have a product or service and you want to offer additional resources, and maybe your customers have ideas and they want to share their stuff. So it's a way for those customers to connect inside an online community in a customer community. And then the other kind of community is just having the differences between support versus customer versus like product, so having like a course or a coaching program or something that you're like kind of productizing in your packaging.
Mm-hmm.
And those are also different ways that entrepreneurs build presence and as well as build relationships within their own memberships and hopefully instill that within their own members.
Yeah. Awesome. Who do you recommend is a good fit for an online community? And is there any type of person or type of entrepreneur or industry that's maybe not such a great fit for an online community?
Yeah, so we have to decide if the community is a solution to a problem that we have. So a lot of businesses are solving some kind of problem that you have. And so is this community going to solve a problem? Are we going to be able to do this together to provide accountability? That's one important factor of like the community strategy itself. The ideal person for that really varies, but most of the time it's somebody who has a body of work, somewhat, it doesn't have to be a large body of work, but they've built some kind of an audience to some extent. And they are either wanting to connect, like I said, the customers together, the clients together, or something of that sort for enriching each other into an ecosystem. And that way, each person who brings that joins that community can bring all their shared wisdom. And it's not just about the host, it's about all of the members, and they gradually learn things. And maybe they go from having no idea about a topic to like being somebody who's encouraging people. And then there's also people who are like, maybe they become leaders and things like that. So there's all these different aspects of like stages or phases of a community. And basically it's about being patient, being very patient, because things don't happen the way you want them to. Like a lot of things in business, it's like, I want them to do this. I'm like, great, but you can't get them to do this because that's not how people work.
Right. Yeah. It's like the story of my life as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like it's helpful if you have some sort of audience to begin with, at least some group of people. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a large group, but you have some group of people that you want to bring together for some purpose. And I would imagine it's probably helpful to know what that purpose is when you're starting your community.
Yeah, the outcome transformation. We think of community as transformation. So I start as one thing, maybe I come in unsure of something, and maybe it takes me a while, right, to navigate this. One of the things I was thinking about recently, I was doing some research for my client. Menopause is something that her business works around, and I was trying to find some resources for her, and it's like, we should have more menopause communities. We should talk about this more. And I was like, I need to join one of these because
Right.
I have these things happening. And I'm like, is this normal? So I think those are kinds of ways that you can establish, like, if this is going to be helpful to a lot of people, and thinking about, what are problems that a lot of us have. And one of the other things I talk about is like your dentist. You go to your dentist because they have a specific skill, right? And if he says you have a cavity, you're not going to go to your friends and be like, help me get this cavity out. You're going to be like, okay, get the cavity or fill the cavity.
Right.
But maybe you want help. Maybe you want help with dental hygiene. And so you and I are in a community for dental hygiene, and you're just going to remember to floss, and I'm going to remind you to floss if you forget, and we're going to support each other in flossing and brushing our teeth every day. That's kind of where the community piece comes in, and we can learn. And then maybe you've learned something that I have not learned, and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good analogy. I love a good analogy. Sometimes I come up with an analogy that I think is going to be really good, and it makes no sense. But that was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just about having that group of people who have some common thread that it benefits them to come together and share their experiences or their resources or their wisdom or whatever.
Right.
Okay. So for me, I have seen communities be used in two different ways. Like, one is sort of for like lead generation. Like, I have this free community, you can come into it, but then I'm going to sell you into my paid offer. For me, the Powerful Women Rising community, that's my only offer. That's the only thing that I sell. So I have seen some pros and some cons to doing both ways, because I did it the other way in my previous business as a dating coach. What do you think are the pros of having an online community?
It's typically when you need something the most is when you find solutions, because you've already been researching this topic or subject matter, and you just really want to do it with some other people. A lot of the time it comes down to that. And the one thing I'll say about the Facebook groups, I have heard a lot of this ideas about, people don't want to be sold to, no matter what. They just don't want to be sold to. They want to feel like they are part of something and that they can contribute and they're being heard. And that's the point of a community, is for me shouting on social media. I don't know who's going to hear me. But if I'm in a safe space in an online community with my peers who all have the same, maybe common things as me, and I say, hey, I'm really having a tough day, or I've got this challenge that's coming up, and trying to get some ideas around it. And then I can ask those questions because I've already feel safe, and I already know that they're going to hear me and they're going to return back something positive and insightful or inspiring for me to be able to take from that dialogue, whether it's a Zoom call or whether it's just chatting, in the comments. I think the difference is about building relationships on a deeper level. And so instead of saying, here's my group and now here's all my offers, instead of saying those things, saying, we're going to create a safe space here. And here's what that means. And then and it's not about like the rules necessarily, because I know Facebook has those rules that when you join, you have to like click agree to rules. It's kind of about that, because you have to create some kind of safety, and you have to tell them that there are people that are monitoring, and that anything that's crazy that's being said is going to be removed, those kind of things. But that's also an opportunity for you to say what your purpose is. My purpose is that I really want to help you cultivate or grow whatever it is. Like, say I want to build an online business, and so I joined your community to build an online business. I'm learning all these things that you're sharing. So maybe you're sharing a tip that you learned from a client. Maybe you're sharing something that vulnerability is one of the best ways to start creating connections inside a community. And so maybe you're sharing something vulnerable, and that allows other people and gives them permission to then share something vulnerable. But it's not going to happen by just posting a question and saying, like, tell me your worst experience ever about this thing. Like,
Right.
not going to quite go over well. You're probably not going to get a lot of responses to that one unless it's something silly. But the more intentional you are about these groups, certainly there are other places now. There's a plethora of lots of other platforms in addition to, just connecting online or in person at a coffee shop. Like, there's all kinds of different ways to connect. And so what I really tell people is thinking about what makes sense for you. Like, if you are somebody who loves hanging out in a coffee shop, then great. Maybe you get together with a few friends and you start a book club because that's what y'all like to do. Or maybe it's just you're jumping on Zoom once a week to check in and or once a month to say, here's what we're learning this month. It's new about this topic. So I think it's more about sharing these resources because we felt a lot of times like we didn't have access. I think a lot of, especially women, don't have access to so many things, or it's behind some kind of big wall that we're supposed to jump through hoops to get to or something. And I think opening those doors up and providing more information is another way to support.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I was thinking when you were talking about the Powerful Women Rising community, and it's interesting because there were kind of two iterations of it. It was like, I launched it last January and I was like, this is going to be great. Everybody's going to love it. And I had about 30 founding members. They all paid for 6 months up front at the end of the 6 months. This is like the fourth time I've told this story today. And I don't think I've ever told this story. It's not the best moment of my business journey. So I had 30 members at the end of 6 months, 3 of them stayed. And I was like, what is happening? Like, I had read, I don't know if you've read the book Retention Point. He talks a lot about how like it's much harder to get people to stay in a community and to renew their membership than it is to get them to join it. And so I was like, is that just what's happening or what is the deal? So I really had to look at like, what is the point of what we're doing here? Because I think part of what had happened was I had a point. And then I was like, but also we probably need this, and they probably need this, and I should do this, and they're going to want this, right? Like I got to add all this value as if what I had in the beginning was not valuable enough. And so I think it really got away from what its actual purpose was. And I also had to really think about like, what are the things that people are telling me that they want in this community? And what are the things that I am loving doing? Because there were a lot of things that I was doing that I didn't love, but I just thought I should do them. They should be part of the membership. And I thought that people wanted it, and they apparently didn't. So I totally like revamped it and relaunched it in October. It's going way better than it went the first time, which is great. But I do think there's some important kind of back work that needs to be done before launching a community to really be clear about what is the outcome that you're trying to get? What is the space that you're trying to create? What do you want people to do here? Like, do you want people coming here and sharing the stuff that they won't share with anyone else in the world? Or do you want people coming here and just sharing their like best business advice? Like, what is the goal? What is the outcome that you want for people? And I think, who are the people that you want in this community? Because sometimes, especially I think when it's a free community or we're using it for like lead generation or a way to build our business, we're just like, everybody come in. And that's not always the best plan, right?
No, in fact, community is really about exclusivity because people have to know if it's for me or not for me. And Facebook is the everybody community, right? There's everybody on Facebook. But when you leave social media and you think about intentional platforms or places that you're going to connect, whether it's an in-person or an online experience, you're thinking about it in a different way. And you're also alleviating all of these other distractions. You're removing the distractions by saying, no, we only talk about this thing here. And this is how we talk about it. And these are our core things. So I think what you're saying there, purpose, super important. And community purposes change all the time. And community is constant change like life. And so I think I only tell people to like have a strategy, a community strategy of like 90 days and see how that flows, and then decide, okay, is this something? Also, ideal members are important to know before you open a community. Like if you don't know who your ideal members are, that's where you would start, because I think the best way to understand what you want to do in the membership, like you've got to be passionate, it's got to bring you joy, but also what do they want? I think there's so many assumptions. Like you're saying, there's so many assumptions that people make about, oh, I should have this and I have to provide all this value. And at the end of the day, people, whether you have a thousand hours of, videos, or you have no content, it's up to people to decide on what they determine is valuable or not. And you can't decide it for them. They
Right.
have to decide it. So the only way to know that is to talk to them. And sometimes that's scary for people, to reach out and say, hey, I saw that you're interested in this information. And so I'd love to chat with you more about it and talk to them and see, what are they struggling with? Well, what's keeping you from, getting to the gym every week, or what's keeping you from starting your own business and leaving this 9-to-5 job that you hate? So what's in the way? And then how can this community support you in moving you forward? That's how I started joining in. I mean, I've been a community builder forever, but I really found that this was my niche. when I was looking for online support for starting an online business in 2016 ish, and there wasn't really a whole lot in my local area, and I didn't know anybody that was doing online business at the time. And so I searched and I found a community. I joined it. I ended up meeting them. I flew to Denver to meet these people, ended up flying to Mexico to meet them in 2019. And they helped me quit my corporate job and become location independent, which was the goal. So I went through that whole phase for 2.5 years with that community. And then I grew to a different place where I needed something else for support. So there's different waves of people that are going to come in. So if you know where you're addressing the pain points, like if they're at the beginner stage or if they're at intermediate, or, there are different phases in their life, and different phases in their life in the sense of maybe they have young kids where they're not going to have as much time, flexibility, or freedom when later in their life, when their kids are moving out and all things change, then they have more time, or they quit their job and they just decide full time that I'm going to go into this business versus I'm trying to do this as a side hustle. So those are like two different kinds of solutions, because those people need different kinds of solutions because they have different priorities.
Right. Yeah. And if you're not specific about this is who this community is for, I mean, we hear it all the time, right? If you're talking to everyone, you're not talking to anyone. And it's so hard, especially when you're newer in business or you're not making money consistently. It's like, okay, but the wider my net, the more likely I am to catch a fish, right? Like logically, that makes so much sense to us. And so when people tell us that's not how it works, we're like, that can't be possible. But I see that a lot with online communities because they get so big and in a sense watered down, right? Because there are people from the beginning of business, people at the end of business, or whatever the topic is. I can understand the appeal of letting everyone in, but that is how the community kind of gets watered down, is because you've got people who are talking about very different things, and it starts to feel like maybe this isn't the place for me because these people who are talking have been at this for 10 years, or maybe this isn't the place for me because these posts are all for new business owners. So being intentional about who you let into the community makes a huge difference.
Well, and it makes you're able then to speak directly to those people, and those ideal member interviews that I suggest that you do at least 10 of them. Probably better to do 20 just to like get a variety of different opportunity of people. But like, then you can just use what they're saying and basically just turn it around and say, in this community, we help you grow your business to, be able to be full-time in your business. So we take you from a side hustle to a full-time, or something very specific. Like you can see the line, you can see what's happening. And it's very clear.
Yeah.
What happens is, as marketers, we like to be cute and funny. And I love being cute and funny. And like everybody else, we're like, I want to be cute or something with this thing. And that just isn't helpful and it's not clear. And then, like, I love Brene Brown's quote, clear is kind, because when we just simplify it to saying, just this is it. Like, I had my podcast or my community as Find Calm Here. Everybody thought it was like a meditation community when it ended up not being a meditation community. And so I had the podcast called Find Calm Here. Well, nobody got what that was either. So I was like, that's not what I'm doing either. So then I changed it to the Community Strategy Podcast. It's about community strategy. And I could clarify to like online community, but to keep it short, because community is a big word and it's so annoying.
It is. Why is it so long?
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, the clearer you are, the more people are going to get it. And I work with a lot of people who have these, because a lot of marketing has been telling us this for a long time, to like make it complicated or make it this way or make it that way. And we have to like deprogram ourselves from that and just say, hey, here's what I'm going to do. I want to help 5 people achieve X thing. And I want to learn how we can all do that together. That's super clear. We don't need to like put little exclamation points or anything.
Yeah. We don't need 5,000 emojis, ChatGPT. Right. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I tell people a lot when I'm talking about networking more effectively, because people do this all the time in their introductions at networking groups or at networking events. They try to be like really cute and clever when they're introducing themselves and talking about what they do. And they'll say something like that is very creative and maybe makes you think like, oh, that's intriguing. Like I help busy moms find 2 extra hours in the day or something like that. It's like, okay, that's interesting. But also I have no idea what you do. Right. It's like, do you sell some kind of supplement that is going to give me more energy? Do you do something that helps my kids? Do you help me with time management? Are you a coach? Like, I still don't know what's going on. And if you've only got 30 seconds to introduce yourself, or you've only got like a LinkedIn banner to tell everybody what your community is, you got to get to the point, because people decide immediately, like in the first 10 seconds, if they want to keep listening to what you have to say or not. And if it's not super clear to them that you're talking to them or that your community is for them to solve their problem, then they're going to move on. Like, people aren't going to do the work to find out what Find Calm Here means if they're not looking for a meditation site, right? They're just like, that's not for me. Bye.
But it's so funny because we learn how to like get this clarity through lots of practice and like, just experimenting on what makes sense. And so I think one of the key points about community is that it can be a fun endeavor to like just see where this road of community takes you, because you never know who you're going to meet. People bring amazing things to online spaces. I think the one challenge that people have is community is it can be complex, and it can be, especially if you're trying to have like 5 offers and pick this and pick that. And memberships, I don't tell people to do memberships. I tell them to do timed programs. So if you're a new community builder and you're trying to do a monthly membership, you're going to probably go and see because it's something that it never stops. It never stops. So you have to figure out if there's going to be an end date and then what's next all the time. And I think that leads to that. I want to provide value. And it has this like fear behind it of saying, oh, I have to keep creating value so people stay in here. But really the opposite is true. We don't need more content. We actually need more connection. And so what we want to do is make sure that our members are connecting with each other and finding out where they are in their journeys and understanding what they'd like to do. I think it's really helpful to have like a person that you can bring up. Oh, I know Deb, she knows a lot about this topic. And so I'll reach out to her. Hey, Deb, I know you know a lot about this. Would you be willing to share your experience and maybe have a community member led events? Because those are things that I helped clients one time. I was talking to a community, a simple living community, and we determined that their members had these different skill sets. And I was like, that sounds amazing. That they could share these skills that they've honed, because not all of them have the same skills. They're all different. And so then they can have these skill sharing events where they're saying, hey, here's what I know. And then that's allowing them to be seen, and it's providing more value. And it's not costing you as the host anything other than to elevate your members.
Right. Yeah, that's brilliant. So, for those who already have an online community, do you have any tips for growing their memberships or increasing engagement in the community?
When you say engagement, I think we talk about your meaning like likes, comments, cheers, all those kinds of things.
That or just like showing up. I mean, if it's an in person group, getting people to actually show up and engage, getting people to talk to each other, like get to know each other outside of the big community, anything like that.
I think there's different ways that you can create and cultivate connection on a deeper level. I'm a part of a group called it's Lancaster chapter of Polka Dot Powerhouse, which is a big community for online, and they have in-person chapters. But they have this little slip that you put on a piece of paper at the meeting that you write who you want to connect with, so you can intentionally connect with somebody. You can have pairing programs online. I recommend doing pairing programs, especially if you're doing a course or some kind of instructive learning, so that we can check in with each other. I had a mastermind where I switched the pairing each time we have a session. So each month they get to meet a new person and they get to talk to that person about their challenges of that month. So I think there's different ways to create this kind of connection depending on what makes sense for your community and those people. And not everybody's going to stay. And if they don't stay, that's probably a good thing in some cases, because that means you've helped them solve the problem. They don't have the problem anymore. So the other thing is you have to think about the positive aspects of people leaving. And if you create an amazing experience for those people, they're going to tell everybody about it. They're going to tell all their friends. They're going to share about it on social media, because that's what I did when I was like the ideal member for this other community, and I shared it. But they didn't tell me to do anything. I wrote a story about it. I did a lot of stuff for that community because I truly felt so passionate about it. So I really believe if you create these experiences for people and just give them a space, that you cultivate over time to build that trust so that they know this is a place where you can be your real self. You can take off the mask and like be the real person that you really want to be and get support and grow. When you have those, it's typically the smaller communities. It's not these 1,000-person, 10,000 people communities, because you just can't do it that way. And so the people that are doing those kind of communities, well, they have this different agendas. They have different focus points. They're more interested in maybe selling courses or selling programs. And while I like selling courses and programs, there's a difference when I write in the first chapter of my book, part of the ecosystem or empire. And the empire system is talking about how you're leveling up each time so that you're maybe getting closer and closer to this person at the top, versus ecosystem. We're all in the same place. We're just all in the same place in the space, but we all bring different experiences, and we had varied levels of understanding about a topic.
Yeah.
And so we can contribute by bringing other experiences we've had in our life. Like if I don't know anything about menopause, but I know a lot about changing a tire, which I don't know that either, but then I can teach you how to change a tire. You know what I mean? So, but then maybe you tell me about other things. So I think it's just that connection piece. People say, how much content do I need to have, for my community or to have a membership? And I say, not much, because you just want to start with, what's the purpose? What are we doing together? And why is it important? Why is it important to you? Why is it important to me?
Yeah. You sound so simple when you say it like that. So if people want to find your book, if they want to learn more about you, if they want to connect with you and find out more about what you do, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, I do have a website. It is called findcalmhere.com. And that's because I help business owners find calm in the process of building online community, as well as cultivating a business that you can actually enjoy instead of your business running you. And so I help with organization and productivity as we're streamlining this community strategy so that it's working the right way, not a 10,000 people community that nobody's interested in staying in and nobody checks in. Those are not things that I help with.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom with us. I really appreciate it, and so much good stuff here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I also want to mention there is a free worksheet from the book that is designed directly from the book that you can get from my website, findscalmhere.com. And I have the community of community builders, which is called Community Builders with Purpose. It's also a free community where I have events and other things, the podcast and some blogs in there, as well as people that are awesome.
Awesome. I will put all the links for those in the show notes so people can check those out. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Powerful Women Rising podcast. If you liked what you heard, please feel free to subscribe, leave a review, share this episode with somebody that you know would benefit. Also, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. You can watch almost all of my interviews over on the YouTube channel and see how cute and fun we are in real life. Don't forget to join us on the next Powerful Women Rising virtual speed networking event. If you're listening to this live, we've got one coming up in just a couple days. Even if you're not listening live, we've still got probably one coming up in the next couple days. So click the link in the show notes and get registered. You can use the code FIRST TIME to attend at no cost if you've never been to one of our events before. I can't wait to connect over there with you, and I will see you next week.